Hey, Brad.
Hi, Jared. How are you?
Can't complain.
Hi, Perry.
What's going, Perry?
How you guys doing tonight?
Doing well.
I was better before I saw myself on the video.
Yeah, it never looks good.
No,
You can,
man,
if you
not
I know,
put,
impressive
especially now
tonight.
you basically live on Zoom. I just
Yeah,
every time.
yeah. And
if
probably
I think there's a way usually to make it so that you don't see yourself on video.
no, it's not
Yeah,
that.
I feel like it's weird though if I don't watch what I'm doing. Like I'm gonna do something stupid if I'm not paying attention to myself.
That's definitely possible.
I had to cut down a whole bunch of trees today. It was a sad day.
Are you going to be replacing them on a one-to-one basis?
Something like that.
At your house or what do you?
no. We're starting a site development in Framingham. Just bought an old Nissan dealership.
Oh, okay. What are you guys gonna put there?
Um, it's right next to a Whole Foods, so we're expanding the Whole Foods, and now we have this Nissan dealership that we get to fit out with whoever will sign a lease with us.
Oh, so
And
it could be whatever. Who
it'll
knows?
be we got a little building that'll be Starbucks and one other tenant. And,
Is this up over near Shoppers World?
west down Route 9.
Okay.
The whole
Oh,
purpose
yeah, I
would
do
be
know that. I grew up next door
I
in
think
Ashland, so I've been
yeah.
over there many, many times in my life.
The whole purpose
yeah,
of
it's a,
the project is to keep Whole Foods there and not let them go to Shoppers World.
Oh, interesting.
yeah, because everything's at Shoppers World now. It seems like.
Not much. A
Although I
lot of
wonder with the
vacancies
big
over
box
there.
stores.
Oh, is there now? I haven't
Yeah.
been down there since COVID started. So
Well, I mean, the TJ Maxx stores are all there still,
yeah,
but
I guess that's what I'm
there's
thinking of.
there's definitely some holes.
Hi, Louisa.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Beautiful day today. I hope you folks got to get outside.
Oh yeah, all day.
Oh, yeah. So you're back outside working, huh?
Yeah, they're letting me outside again finally.
That's good.
It
Yeah,
only
I
took
get to. Let's see, I get to do visits now too. So I get to go. I get to drive my car and go to work tomorrow and go visit people. It's exciting.
it's pretty typical Crosspoint fashion where we um, plan developments all winter and summer, and then right as it starts getting colder is when we start digging foundations.
Oh,
Just in the nick of time, maybe,
Perfect.
hopefully, get the sharp teeth on the excavator style. So we just had day one. I was telling them out in Framingham today.
Now, are you on site at all, like the whole time, Bradley? Oh,
When I can,
Brad. Yeah, when you can get out there.
yeah. I'm not like um, site supervising per se, but I am pulling permits. So for the small jobs, um, it's usually my responsibility.
Yeah,
The bigger stuff we hire a GC for, though. They furnish
yeah.
their own super.
Like sometimes I think I missed being on construction sites, and then I go to a construction site and I'm like, no, never mind.
Yeah, except for a day like today where it's beautiful.
No, that's the
You
days. It's
don't
like
get
it's
too
nice
many of
out,
them. Yeah.
and then I'm like, oh yeah, then it's negative 10 degrees on the Canadian border every once in a while, and those aren't the days you want to be on a construction site.
No. Yeah, there's a lot more that are not the right weather than that there are the right weather.
So, Louisa, we're just waiting for Bill and Weston, and Kevin can't make it tonight, of course.
no, it's not quite 7 anyway.
Oh, it looks like Weston just joined.
There's Weston. We now have a quorum.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. I had a soil science class from the university out at my farm today.
Oh, no way.
Field trip, digging holes and
Which
peering
professor?
down holes. And it's pretty interesting.
Oh, wow.
They had a beautiful day for it.
Yeah, it was gorgeous out today. Once it got a little warm, it was nice.
Mm.
Do you know what professor it was?
Obrist, Daniel Obrist.
Daniel Obrist. No, I don't recognize that name. Very cool.
We'll just wait a couple minutes here. Bill is usually pretty much on time.
While we're getting started, we just ask that anybody who's joining us from outside of the commission would mute themselves and turn off their video until their project is up for presentation.
Our agenda has become fairly small tonight, I'd say, with 2 continuations.
Hey, hello
Hey, Bill.
everyone.
There's
How's it
Bill.
going?
Okay, it's just 7 p.m. If everyone's ready, we can get started. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the September 23rd meeting, 2020, of the Lowell Conservation Commission. We have continued business as our first item. An order of conditions extension and modification for DEP file number 2060773. This is the Merrimack Riverwalk Phase 2. This is the City of Lowell. They have requested a continuation, so we won't be hearing this particular item tonight, and I believe it's continued until October 12th. That would be our next meeting. Moving on. Oh no, I'm sorry, that was continued to October 28th, 2020 meeting. Anyone who's interested in the in the Riverwalk item. Our next item is a request for a certificate of compliance from Hancock Associates for Heritage Properties. The DEP file number is 2060778, and the project location is 770.1, 850, 852.5 Lawrence Street. This particular applicant was at our most recent meeting, and we requested that they send in some modifications for their request for certificate, and we have received those. And I see, Brian, would you like to speak to what you've done since our last meeting?
Sure. So for the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates, along with Jeffrey Bush and Chris Peterson with Heritage Properties, here tonight as well. So the last hearing we had, and Brian Bush, excuse me, and the last hearing that we had, there was an expressed concern about some of the restoration plantings that were done. So just to kind of reiterate the history of this project, how we got here today, what was originally proposed for a landscape and restoration plan, and what we've done since the last hearing to hopefully assuage the Commission's concern. So back in February of 2018, we filed a notice of intent with the Commission and opened the public hearing. We then continued to the 28th of February to address some different concerns, primarily being stormwater management. It was a wish of the Commission to look at LID practices, which we did, and completely revised our drainage to accommodate rain garden design. Following that meeting, during that meeting, public hearing was closed and the order of conditions issued. Now, there are 3 specific special conditions that were set forth by the commission. The first being that we inventory and locate on a plan the proposed trees that require pruning or removal. The second condition was to schedule a site walk with the commission, and the third special condition being an invasive plan and landscape plan, as well as an operation and maintenance plan. So those 3 special conditions were a part of the order. And we then, in December of 2018, did that first and third item. We inventoried all of the trees that were out there, took a look at the invasives, evaluated the area, and recommended specific trees be removed as a part of kind of cleaning up the riverfront area. On December 7th, we also issued our proposed landscape restoration O&M plan. This was heard and site walked December 13th by the commission, and it was discussed that some of the trees that wanted to be saved needed to be evaluated, and we subsequently revised that landscape plan according to this commission site walk and kind of the conversation that happened that night. And that was the landscape plan that I had put on the computer at the last hearing. So subsequent to the last hearing, we heard that there were concerns about tree canopy, concerns about vegetative cover being robust enough and fully established, as well as some areas of erosion. So what we've done, could I share my screen or? Yeah.
Brian, you should be a co-host now.
Okay. Here we go. So what we've done is we've issued kind of an evaluation of what we believe addresses those concerns. So we went out there, took another hard look at kind of the areas in question, and just running through the site photos, and then we'll shift to the plan. The first photo is looking north towards where the Concord River Greenway is. This is right by the upper infiltration basin. You can see kind of a horizontal line going across the grass area. Those are wattles that demarcate the limit of the Concord River Greenway. And this is just giving a shot of the areas where we're now going to be proposing additional trees. To shift looking south, the next picture is just a little bit further, closer to the building, taking a shot of one of the trees that was in question that's not too healthy. And then the bottom picture indicates a shot looking north towards the building at the other stand of trees. And generally speaking, I believe this was the area of potential erosion because of the side slopes being a little bit more steep. So pivoting to the actual landscape plan, what we've done is propose 4 additional trees in the areas towards the Concord River Greenway as the slope flattens out. So from where that last picture was taken, kind of the midpoint of the upper rain garden, heading towards the Concord River Greenway, we proposed 4 additional trees. They're spaced about 35 feet apart. And what that's going to do is that's going to infill the canopy when they become fully mature. So we'll have trees that are staggered 35 feet that blend into the trees that are there today. And I believe that from the Concord River Greenway to the actual building. Additionally, we've proposed to supplement the seed that's already out there, the grass and the vegetation, with 3 pounds of conservation mix from New England wetland plants. Now, the application of those 3 pounds is only about 3,000 square feet, and the application rate is about twice as much as what is specified. So what we're doing is we're going to overseed this area with that conservation mix to make sure that we get a really robust vegetative cover. Now, to look at the area that was in question, that may not have had as much vegetative cover, there still is straw wattle that's decomposing, and that demarcated the limit of grading and generally the limit of seeding from the original landscape plan. So if you look on the opposite side of that straw wattle, where seed wasn't applied, it's not as grass and fescues haven't come in, because essentially that was an existing condition. Anything that happened on the opposite side of that line was strictly tree clearing. So as a part of this supplemental overseed, we're now going to be taking and seeding that area, basically from the granite wall up to the shoulder of the slope, and that will encompass that whole section from where the corral is at the end of the pavement to essentially where we're proposing to start installation of trees. Now, the way procedurally, if this is acceptable to the board, what we had discussed last time is making this a part of the record, making it a part of the ongoing operation and maintenance. So by revising the landscape plan, it now is covered under the actual order and ongoing maintenance. So with those kind of critical pieces, additional tree planting, overseeding of the areas in question for erosion, and then additionally overseeding areas that were previously outside of our limit of work that were exclusive to that tree cutting and not subject to any regrading, seed that area to get it stabilized as well. And you know, with that said, I'm here tonight to answer questions. I think that covers the commission's concerns. If there was any additional that came out of any of the commissioners' site walks, you know, we're happy to answer that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. I did go out there and take another look, and I think the overseeding is a great idea. I would have a question about maintenance, though, since you're planting some things that are intended to grow more as a meadow, things that flower, and perhaps, you know, come under the category of cut them a couple times a year. I wondered how that would fit into your maintenance plan, or whether that's something that could be modified on your maintenance plan to actually let that particular mix of seeds you know, mature.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I indicated, those are the areas that had kind of the steeper slope. They're on the back side of the infiltration basin. So we could certainly make it a part of our ongoing O&M that we mow it maybe biannually, middle of summer, end of season, and just let it grow naturally throughout the course of the year. That's not an area that people are walking. It's not really part of any of the manicured grass area, and it is the direct kind of buffer, if you will, from that manicured to the edge of the river. So we would be perfectly fine in doing that, absolutely.
I think that could be quite attractive as well if you have some flowering native plants in there. The second question I had after viewing the site a second time was behind the fenced-in dumpster area. There's quite a rough area of gravel where the pad for the dumpster was made level. Is there anything to be done to that particular area to stabilize it?
Yeah, so what we can do is that's basically at the edge of where our overseeding is. What we can do is top dress it with some loam and then jute net it and make sure that that is included as well in the overseed application to stabilize it.
Okay. And I appreciate the trees. I think those trees are going to be able, you know, they won't grow large enough that they'll get out of control, and they seem to be flowering trees that are going to add quite a bit to the property as far as visual effect. Anyone else here? Comments?
Couple questions. Brian, I went out there myself this afternoon and just quickly looked at it because it was my first time there in a while. Just for context, the area you're talking about is between kind of the dumpster area and where they're doing the restoration work for the Concord River Greenway, where it's fenced off where there's some rebar in other areas, right? Is that the area along the river you're talking about?
Yeah, so it's the area from the established, their 12-inch wattles that are going from basically the river straight down the project towards the Concord River. From there to where our riprap outfall is going to be trees. And then on the other side of the riprap outfall to behind the dumpster corral, the refuse and recycle area, that's going to be the area of overseed. And then obviously what we just discussed about cleaning up and making sure that the slope behind the corral is stabilized.
Do you recall, I mean, I counted about 20 stumps in that area. Do you recall how many of the trees in that area were cut down versus how many were there, probably cut down quite a while ago? I think your total inventory was about 80 trees, but that's for the entire site. I'm just curious, that stretch, how many trees were cut down?
I don't have an exact count. I know that that area was not as potentially thickly wooded as what was in the kind of the overgrown forested area previously. So if you recall the site, there was an existing parking lot that was next to and adjacent to the mill building. It went probably a good 200 feet. So that was all paved, and then there was a small area of overgrowth, and then the trees that were along there. The balance of it was pretty much the island proper, where it was all overgrown, and there were trees there. So if I had to, make an educated guess, maybe a quarter of the total was in that area, with the balance being kind of further down the island.
Well, that makes sense if you had 80 trees total, like I said, I counted about 20 stumps. But and then the area you're talking about is putting in 4 new trees in that stretch, spaced about 35 feet apart, correct?
Correct. And this is in addition to the retained trees that were part of the sidewalk and the inventory and our original restoration.
And I think you were suggesting cutting down that one remaining, there's one standalone tree that doesn't look like it's in the best of condition.
We can cut it down. We can leave it. It is a little bit alive.
All right. No, I guess I'm not clear. I wasn't sure from your
letter. I don't think that there was a specific call to cut that tree down unless there was a reason for it.
So more or less monitor and see what happens over the long term.
Right. Yeah, and if it became a safety hazard, then obviously that would be a part of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks. I agree with Commissioner Varnum. I think the enhancements there will kind of help to even stabilize the site more and contribute to the visual landscape. So thanks.
Along Bill's questions about that side and how many trees were cut down, if I recall correctly, the purpose of the tree inventory as special condition number 1 was with an intention of figuring out and measuring caliper and number of trees to be removed so that we could establish a ratio at which we would be replanting. And I don't recall what that ended up being, but we had a recommendation, I believe, as how the trees were sized in the landscape plan. With that in mind, I went out and measured some of the calipers of the larger trees. And while I know that they were large caliper trees spec'd, they didn't, some of them didn't hit the minimum requirement of that range. It was close. But I don't recall exactly how you guys got to the number of trees that you decided on planting, but I believe that one end of that caliper range was in line with our expectations as far as ratio from what the size trees were existing. With that in mind, I appreciate adding some trees. I'd like to revisit, any expectations that the commission had in the initial planting and landscape requirements, but I don't know what that number was offhand, if anybody can recall. The plantings, a couple trees on this end are definitely helpful. I I would certainly agree that that's a good step.
Okay, any further discussion? I don't think there's anyone from the public that's wanting to speak on this one, but should there be, this is the time. I feel that when can this additional planting be done, Brian?
So we would be looking to overseed and stabilize right now is a good time to do it. On the trees, we'll check nursery stock inventory and make sure that we have some suitable trees. It's getting a little bit late for that. I wouldn't mind deferring until the springtime on those 4 trees, just because we're in drought right now. We're heading into we're in fall. We're heading into the winter. I think it would be good as a part of our springtime annual maintenance to get those done. But certainly, the overseed, the jute, and dealing with behind the corral can be done now.
Okay. So I think the work you've proposed, the additional work you've proposed, really answers my questions about the finished product on that part of the site. And I don't know if anyone feels we're ready to make a motion on this particular project.
Before we do, I would just like to voice my concern of the health and the longevity and life of those trees that have been planted. If we're going to be waiting till the spring to plant other trees, I would like to keep them before any annual maintenance and withhold the certificate of compliance till that time. I want to see these trees come back to life before we move on to the next phase.
Okay. Further opinions on this? Would the planting of the trees, this fall instead of waiting till spring, would that answer your concerns, Brad?
No. No, I don't think it's a good time to plant. I think the right time to plant is in the spring. But even with the first frost being out there today, a lot of those smaller shrubs that were planted and the trees, they don't look healthy.
Mm-hmm. Well, you really have to keep after them with water, planting after this drought that we've been in.
So again, I would just like to key into the point that there is an ongoing O&M in perpetuity. And issuing a COC this evening does not preclude us from making sure that this vegetation is viable and vibrant come springtime, come after the fall, come 2 years from now. So this entire area is subject to the commission. So we'll always, have the opportunity to revisit what's going on today. So what we're proposing, whether the 4 trees going in the spring or the fall, this fall, they have to take root and become mature.
Brian, I got a question for you. I mean, I know when it comes to property transfer, a realtor looking to, developer looking to sell to a buyer, obviously getting that certificate of compliance, completed and then recorded in the registry of deeds is important. But given that this is kind of their apartments, I'm wondering, to Brad's point, I mean, what's the risk to the developer in holding off until the spring, knowing that these are apartments? I mean, are they able to do they have an occupancy permit? I just don't know what the status is of the building.
So they're fully occupied right now. And in terms of the risk, I mean, it's refinancing. I mean, look at the interest rates right now and the market that we're in and everything that's going on. It would really handicap the owners to not be able to have that opportunity. And again, I just want to stress that the commission has full jurisdiction over this island should things not go in the manner that they want. I think that the landscape plan that we've modified goes above and beyond, obviously, what was already approved and what was done out there. So that's us showing that we want to make sure that this island meets the expectation and the ongoing conditions, the ongoing operation and maintenance make sure that the commission has the control that they need to make sure that this vegetation does take hold and that expectation is met.
My sense is, I think what we're, and allow us to chime in, what we might be kind of struggling with is, without the order conditions, the responsibility and burden is on the applicant to make sure that those requirements are followed through. In the event that, we issue the order conditions, those responsibilities are there, but then that burden falls on the commission in the city of Lowell to make sure that it's being followed. And I think my sense is that's kind of what we're struggling with. Which is why I asked the question too, because I also want to be sensitive to the developer. And I mean, this has been a good project. And you folks certainly at Hancock have, always done a good job working with us. So I'm just trying to think it through a bit.
Out as a part of the O&M, we do, biannual kind of reporting, if you will. So come springtime, as we come out of the winter season, we'll issue a report to the commission explaining exactly what the conditions of the vegetation are, what was taken up. So that's going to cover the overseeding that happens right now. And then come next fall, that's going to cover the springtime plantings to see if they made it through next summer. So those two reports are really going to allow the commission to key into what's going on out there, and then hold us to what we're saying we're committing to doing.
Well, I for one would be open to that suggestion. I don't know if my colleagues would, but I think that might be a good compromise.
I believe that's reasonable.
Weston, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable. The a biannual report is that's for what it is with the growing season and the drought not going our way this year. What more can we do than to monitor it further and under a maintenance plan and everything? I think we would still have control over the situation, and not to say that they wouldn't want these plants to be healthy. I mean, it's going to make their property value go up if these plants look nice. So I think that's a good compromise, and they have done a lot of work.
Well, certainly it's a very straightforward proposal to finish up that particular area. And anybody that drives by there can tell whether they've followed through or not. So, we have no problem issuing enforcement orders should we see something that isn't following through on what it's supposed to be doing.
Right.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I'm Brian Bush. I'm president of Heritage Properties. I just as an additional clarification, the trees that were planted as a result of some work that our site contractor did that I believe Brad was referencing, you should also know that those are covered by a bond of over $100,000 for those plantings and for them to take that has not been released. So that's additional security beyond the order of conditions that the city of Lowell has for that work.
The city of Lowell holds the bond.
They do.
Yeah.
Until which point?
Until they release it, till their satisfaction.
Can we as a commission have any impact in reducing that bond?
I would think, Jared's on this call, I believe. Jared, are you on the call?
Yes.
So Jared, you might know you were part of putting that bond in place, how that actually is going to be released. The bond was put in place by the site contractor who did the work with a few different people and departments from the city. And I don't remember exactly, or I'm not sure I ever knew exactly how that was to be released, but there is a surety bond in place until until that satisfaction is met. Maybe Jared, you know how that gets released.
Jared, is there any news on?
It looks like he's frozen.
Oh.
For me, I mean, that's just a second layer of, protection, risk management, whatever we want to call it. So, I mean, I, for one, feel like I feel comfortable to issue, a certificate of compliance with the acknowledgement that the O&M plan will be modified to include a semi-annual reporting frequency, so we can look at how the plantings that do take place this fall, succeed in the springtime.
Okay, I think we've heard from everyone that wanted to speak. I think what we're lacking now is a motion to some effect.
So I'll offer a motion. I guess, without Jared on. Jared, let me know when you're back on, but I don't recall us issuing a certificate of compliance with conditions. The certificate of compliance usually, you either accept it or you don't. So I don't know how we would note this, but I like what Brian's suggesting in terms of adding in a second reporting, in the O&M plan, that would proactively allow us to kind of monitor how well the fall plantings took, and then make modifications as needed. How would we? I saw that you're back on, Jared. How do we handle that?
So I don't know the specifics of this bond. I'd have to do a little research into it, but ordinarily it's something that, the treasurer's office is not going to release until staff authorize the release of the bond. So we would have to be satisfied, Fran and me, that they've actually have healthy plants that have met the conditions that were part of that.
Well, that combined with, and what I was doing is I was making a motion to approve the order of, to make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for this project, but to note or request that as part of that, as suggested by the applicant, in this case, Brian, to increase the reporting. I think it's annual report, and Brian suggested maybe we get a spring report. That way we can see the seed mix and other things that get planted this fall, how well they take, and to see if additional measures need to be taken in the springtime. It's a way to kind of, lessen the burden on us to kind of be monitoring, and we have an automatic trigger built in to kind of look at the report. And then I think that would also help to inform any discussions that the city would want to have regarding, the surety bond and whether to terminate it or reduce it even partially.
And I think Jared could ensure that conservation gets a voice in discussing that bond, even though we weren't a part of it originally, apparently.
Yeah, and that's something that, for example, the planning board for subdivisions, the planning board has to be the one to sign off on the.
That we could give some input into what happens with
I would consider the threshold for full release of bond to be the same as a granting of a certificate of compliance. I would be in support of reducing the bond, and with full release upon the time at which we've shown that they've complied.
Okay.
I don't think anyone's talking about releasing the bond at this point. What I was trying to do is frame a motion, and the nuance, Jared, is the suggestion to modify the reporting frequency in the O&M plan that was approved. That's all. And so if that can be captured in the notes, I think that's sufficient, for the motion. And then from there, if someone wants to second it, and then we can do a vote.
I think he's gone again.
Yeah, we lost Jared again.
Jared's gone. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Very second. Further discussion? Okay, I think we'll take a roll call vote. I'll do the roll call. Bill?
Yes, I approve.
Brad?
No.
Perry?
Yes.
Weston?
Yes.
Okay, the vote is 3-1.
Are you abstaining, Louisa?
No, but the chair didn't used to vote, and all of a sudden we do, so I'm struggling with that.
Okay.
So I'll vote yes. So the vote is now 4-1. And so that means that we're going to issue the certificate. We have in our minutes the record of what we expect to see as far as reporting on a 6-month basis. And we have, at the same time, I think, authorized the delay of planting of the trees until the springtime. But the other actions would take place this fall as soon as possible. So the vote is passed and the certificate will be issued, but we will plan to be part of the release of the bond and the ongoing work that's going to be happening out there.
Louisa, this is Jared. I just had technical difficulties again for a moment there, so I did miss the vote. Could you just recap it for me?
The vote was 4-1 with Brad opposed.
Okay, thank you.
And did you get the motion, Jared?
I did not. So if you have who motioned and who seconded, that would be.
Bill, repeat that, please. Bill, can you repeat the motion?
Well, so the motion, Jared, was to issue the certificate of compliance for this project, but noting that as recommended or suggested by the applicant, the reporting frequency in the O&M plan would be increased to a 6-month basis for the purpose of we could, look at the succession of the partial planting that will be done this fall, which is everything but the trees. We can look at that way if we have to revisit, putting down that seed mix again, we'll have the opportunity to do that.
Okay, and that was seconded by Perry. Anything
Great, thank you.
on this particular project, Jared? Are you all set with what you've got on file there?
I'm all set and I'm sitting next to the router now, so hopefully there shouldn't be any issues.
Okay.
I was gonna say.
Thank you for coming back, everyone from Heritage Properties and Hancock Associates. I think we can expect that the concerns we had will be followed through on, even though there is a slight delay that some are concerned about. So we do expect to see that project finished up, within the next 6 to 8 months, I'd say. Or maybe not quite so soon. 8 months to 10 months, maybe.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Moving on, we have an enforcement order is next on our agenda. It was issued to Jody Gillette at 113 Fotine Drive. It concerned driveway paving within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands without permission. Now, we had a discussion some meetings ago about this particular project. The enforcement order was still in effect because Ms. Gillette is requesting additional work be done. So I think if we can have a motion to skip down and take this request for determination of applicability from the same applicant at the same time that we discuss the enforcement order. I don't think we can lift the enforcement until we actually give permission for some of this work that she's requesting the RDA about. So can we have a motion to take this item out of order, the other request by the same applicant, Jody Gillette?
I'll make a motion to take the RDA for 113 Fotine Drive ahead.
Okay, motion made, seconded by?
I'll second.
Seconded by Bill. All those in favor? Let's wait. Okay, it makes sense rather than talk about it twice in my mind. So moving down, we'll get back to the request for determination that's next on the agenda right after we do this particular one for 113 Fotine Drive. So the enforcement order came out after work had been completed, and it appears that some of the work that the applicant is requesting here, replacing the asphalt pad underneath the recycling and waste area, installing a privacy fence around that recycling area, replacing the retaining wall at the end of the driveway, leveling and expanding the driveway and filling with crushed gravel, and extend an irrigation system to the end of the driveway. Some of this work, and we'll have to take it one by one, some of it has already been done, as often happens when we have an enforcement order followed by an RDA. So I know Miss Gillette, I think I saw her name here. Are you iPhone? Jody, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm Ted Wint and Jody Gillette.
Okay, I see you now. Well, I don't actually see you, but I see your names.
No camera.
Okay, so I took a second look just this afternoon. I know I had been out there and spoken with you. And if we can take, let me just call that up on what we have in the. No, getting nowhere fast. Here we go. I'm sorry, I'm just calling up the documents that you submitted. Okay, so you have the document that you submitted. I'm looking at the one that says narrative, and you have them numbered. So if we take those in order, you wanted to put an asphalt pad under your trash and recycling bins. I, in particular, is there asphalt there now and you just want to increase it, or is there no asphalt?
There was a 12 by 8 foot paved area there, and we increased it to a 16 by 8 foot area because we have had some increase in occupancy due to having my niece and nephew here, and increase in trash as such. So we got 4 trash barrels, or 2 trash barrels and 2 recycle barrels. So they didn't fit there. They were blocking the door.
Yeah, this is just adjacent to the garage, which is attached to the house. And I don't see any problem with this particular asphalt pad. Would you like to discuss this at the end of going through these, or would you like to discuss one at a time, folks? And you also want to put a privacy fence around the trash cans.
Yes.
I don't see, what kind of a fence is that going to be?
Just probably like a wood sort of picket fence that it just blocks the trash from view. We've had some issues with raccoons getting into the trash, so we want to block that from view and be able to clean that up as needed. But we've also kind of done some work to modify that so they don't get into our trash barrels as often. But they're pretty
the fence is going to stop the flow of water at all.
Oh, no. In fact, there'll be room underneath for the water to go through.
Okay.
It's just a sprinkler.
So at the moment, your house is sort of on a bank, and there is you tore down, I believe, a retaining wall and want to replace it. So right now we've got just a raw, sort of almost vertical slope right behind the trash cans. So something needs to be done to keep that from just collapsing or eroding away. Those 3 items basically the entire trash discussion. Does anyone see a problem with those particular items being accomplished?
My only comment would be to leave the fence up 6 inches. You know, leave the bottom of the fence 6 inches above the ground, so that there's a easy pass through for any critters.
Okay, you don't want to trap the raccoons that drop in there and they can't get out again.
No, I do not.
Nope.
Okay, then we move forward in the house, the driveway area. And you basically, we've seen the pictures, you basically took out a slope. It was sloping up to a stone wall, and then it dropped down again into your wetland. So basically your wetland had no outlet in this area next to your driveway. It's a fairly high, maybe at least 2 feet high, maybe higher, sort of a berm that the contractor left there is what it looks like to me when they were just grading the lawn area. So what's been done is the slope of that lawn going up to the top of the berm before it drops down again into the wetland, that soil was taken out, and this was part of the enforcement order. It's taken out, and the applicant brought in crushed gravel. And so half the driveway, the original driveway, is asphalt. This additional driveway is now level with the other driveway, the original driveway, and it's just one big driveway, half of it paved and half of it crushed asphalt, I would call it, not gravel. Now there is a concern along the side where the land was taken out, where the soil was taken out. There's a raw edge there, and I don't know what can be done about that. It's not the edge that can erode into the wetland, but it could erode down the driveway and get into the drainage catch basin and eventually end up in the wetland. So that's one of the concerns I have with that. And as far as paving it later, I think that's, a lot of asphalt. You would have to come back in order to do that. And I prefer to see that as a pervious surface. But it's just me. The irrigation system is the last request here on your narrative, and I see no problem with that. This would be just a summertime irrigation.
Correct.
In other words, you wouldn't need to bury it down 2 feet or whatever.
No, not at all.
You just turn it on in the summer.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what the request is. I think the erosion of the raw slopes is a concern for the wetland because there is a drainage catch basin at the end of the street, the end of the driveway, which goes right into the wetland. So if sediments are going to run down the driveway, they're going to get into the wetland eventually. If those slopes aren't stabilized somehow. So that's what I saw when I was out there. As I say, I don't have a concern with the trash area. I am concerned about fixing the retaining wall before it erodes further, and also doing something along the edge of the driveway to make a slope there. It's just a vertical raw edge right now. At least make a slope. When you said you wanted to remove it down 14 inches, that work has already been done, hasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's not something that we're asking to do. It's already been done, and this is the situation we're often in with an enforcement order. So everything but the irrigation system and the trash pad and fence have actually been done out there. Are we concerned with any of the work and want to reverse it?
I would agree with you, Louise. Just thinking it through. I mean, I guess to be clear, or just to get some clarification, that area that currently has, you know, crushed gravel, stone, whatever we want to call it, is the intent to leave it like that, or is it the intent to pave it?
The intent is to pave it in the next couple years as our driveway is eroding on its own.
Right. So to make it, so to expand the impervious area, then, in other words.
Yeah.
That little drainage, you know, I don't know, that drain outlet near the end, where does that drain to? Does that just drain to the ground beneath? Or is there an outlet pipe or anything like that from that little drainage at the end of your driveway?
The one in the middle of the driveway or the end of the driveway?
The one at the
end.
end.
The end of the driveway goes.
The end of the driveway is the sewer.
Is the sewer.
By the mailbox.
All right, let me look at that figure again.
Yeah, there's a little 12-foot square drain at the end of the driveway. The other one is in the street.
Yeah, it's within the area where you put the gravel.
Yeah, it's like right at the end. I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, that is a drain that goes into the ground.
All right, so that, did you guys put that in when you expanded the driveway with the crushed gravel?
No, that was actually put in previously. We had a problem with water collecting in the middle.
Melting snow.
Melting.
Okay, so is it just like a catch base and then, you know, just direct discharge to that area with no outfall pipe to the wetland or anything like that?
Correct.
Okay. I guess my take on it would be, I share Commissioner Varnum's concern about, you know, just making sure that that slope doesn't erode and needs to be stabilized. And so I think before rescinding the enforcement order, you know, I mean, I guess the overall, the work that needs to be done, in my opinion, it's de minimis. It wouldn't have, I would issue it, or motion to issue a -3 determination, meaning you're within the jurisdictional area, but the scope of the work doesn't raise a concern to the wetland resources. But I wouldn't rescind the enforcement order until we can kind of stabilize that embankment that kind of is just a raw cut right now where the gravel driveway kind of expands. And so I'd want that to be done as a condition, you know, or an additional condition as part of the RDA, because I don't see anything explicit in that RDA, and that would be something I'd want done before rescinding the enforcement order.
Our intent was to slope that area and plant grass.
Yep.
But we could also, you know, if the board wanted us to, we could put a 1-foot retaining brick, the length of the area. It seems to me like a slope should be fine. But
no, I mean, as long as it's not, I mean, I think to commit, my point is similar to Commissioner Varnum's. I think the concern is just leaving in that in its raw condition. It's going to continue. It's going to erode over time. So that's why we want, you know, I don't think it's a complicated fix. It just needs to be done. So I'd want that to be done as kind of the final part of the expansion area that you did there. And my sense is that square drainage at the end of the driveway, that I'm assuming that's kind of a natural collection point for a runoff from the driveway.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess so long as part of the RDA, that area gets stabilized as part of the overall driveway expansion, then I think that would be the only concern that I would have, or thing that I'd want to see be done, you know, before rescinding the enforcement order.
Okay, well, Right. So then their motivation would be get it done as soon as possible. Then.
Right.
I mean, I would agree with that. It needs to be done as soon as possible certainly before the winter, and you're possibly going to be shoveling snow, etc. along that bank is going to erode it even quicker. So, I mean, I'm sure you know that too, but I mean, I agree with you, Bill.
Okay, so we, do we have a motion to issue, was that a motion, Bill, to issue a negative?
Well, let's see if there's any other discussion.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I want to make sure everyone had a chance to chat before.
Well, we can have the discussion after the motion's
All right.
made and seconded.
All right, and we already ratified the enforcement order the last meeting, correct?
I believe we did.
All right, so then I'll offer a motion to issue a -3 determination for this project with a special condition to make sure, as part of the completion of the elements included in the RDA, that slope along the area where the driveway's been expanded is stabilized as soon as possible, certainly before the winter season.
Okay, motion made. Is there a second? Second,
I'll second.
Weston. Further discussion?
I just want to make
Yes,
a,
okay.
you know, a check that we would allow this, you know, gravel and eventually paved driveway expansion to be permitted were it not started before the RDA process.
Well, my thinking on it, Brad, is, and others please weigh in, is, you know, it's outside the no disturb zone. I think I could look at it on the merits of it's currently gravel, you know, and even if it wasn't gravel, there's a collection point for direct infiltration. So you don't have sheet flow going into the street and added capacity to the city's stormwater system. You know, so in that context, I would think of it as de minimis.
I mean, I would ride that same thought and say that it drains away from the wetland as well. I mean, you know, what they have there, the crushed gravel, is really pretty impervious at this point, right? So, I mean, it's a good check to think, Brad. I don't know. I haven't been on the commission that long, so I'm not.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have any problem with it. I just wanted to make sure that we did double check ourselves.
Right.
It's a good thing to do, and I guess my take on it is the whole purpose of an enforcement order is to bring folks to remind folks that anytime you're doing work within a jurisdictional area, even if it is de minimis, which I would argue the scale and scope of this is, you still need to come before the commission with an application for us to discuss to make sure that we are all in agreement that it's de minimis before issuing that -3 determination.
I would have been a little more concerned with this had that berm area not been there, because then we would have had perhaps runoff directly into the wetland area, whereas now it's a lot of it perhaps can be infiltrated through the gravel driveway before it gets actually down to the city catch basin. Can we have a vote on the motion if there's no more discussion? All those in favor of issuing the -3? I see Bill made the motion. Okay. The motion is passed unanimously. What this means is that you have permission to do the work that you proposed, and keep in mind the discussion that you've heard tonight about doing something about that slope. It wasn't specified in your proposal. So we will be looking for that to be stabilized in some manner.
And just to be clear, once that's done, you let the city know, and then we can take up the enforcement order and at that time rescind it, so it's off the books, so to speak.
Okay, so we finish it and then have it brought to the commission again, or?
Yeah, give a call to the Conservation Commission office and someone will come out, take a look at your finished product, your finished project, and at that time we can put you back on the agenda to lift the enforcement order. Are there any other questions?
Not from us.
Okay, thank you for dialing in, and good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, we're going to take one step backwards here to take up the request for determination of applicability that is next, filed by Donald and Laurie Provencher, 182 18th Street. This is a request to rebuild and relocate a shed, install an above-ground pool, repair an existing deck, regrade and landscape a portion of the yard within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. This is not the same property that we had most recently, which is the house next door, but it's the same wetland. So we do have a 50-foot buffer zone demarcated on the property because the houses were built under orders of condition from us. There are granite posts at the 50-foot buffer mark, and a lot of this work that they're requesting to do is within the 50-foot buffer. This area is some changed from over the years, which the office sent us some photos showing the changes that had taken place in the backyards. And we were concerned at the time with this particular lot because it not only had the wetland to the rear, but along the side a bit as well. This is it's a very tight lot, and the purpose of the markers was to make sure that the applicant came in with a proposal before they did any work in this particular area. And they have done that. But I think we should probably take these proposals one at a time as well. If you could just give me a moment to call this one up. Okay, so let's see. The Provenchers here with us tonight?
Yes, we're both here.
Okay, you're called iPhone on my list.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so welcome. I'm looking at the proposals here, and the first one is to relocate the shed to the rear corner of the property on concrete blocks. And you do note that, you know, a lot of the sheds of the neighboring properties are on the rear line. I'm wondering if this is something you consider absolutely necessary, because you do have less of a rear property line than some of the other properties. You know, the shed will take up more of your total property line than maybe some of the neighboring properties. Is this something that's high on your list, or negotiable?
We would like to have more of a usable yard. We have a small lot, as you came on and saw. We have a smaller lot. It's relatively flat in that back left-hand corner, so that's why we chose to move it back there. We're just trying to. We have a small child, and we want more of a usable yard to do stuff in, as opposed to bumping in the shed. And like I said, that area was flat. It would be on blocks so water could get through. It wasn't going to be a hindrance to lower vegetation. There's a forsythia back there, but we can move that relocate that, so that wasn't an issue.
Well, we already have a walkway.
And there's already like a natural walkway there that we just kind of with.
So we'd just be putting it on the walkway.
You know, leaving the shed where it is gives you more room to the rear. I mean, you're just moving your space around. Not
Yeah,
really,
leaving where it is, it's not really usable land right there in the rear. It's not like we can run around and play ball over there. Whereas if we move the shed back there, we can use that land. It's runaround land. It's not.
well, your shed is on a slope right now. I don't see that as any more usable than the flat area. Okay, so let's just move down. Can you tell us about the pool? Apparently, pools can't be connected to a house, to a deck that's on a house. Is that the way it goes?
I don't believe so. Other neighbors have pools connected to their deck.
Okay, well, I wondered why you were going to have a separate deck rather than just put the pool up to the deck that you have already.
I don't know. It just seemed easier, I guess is a better term. It's only a small deck, something you climb up, step off, get in the pool, instead of just a ladder. It wouldn't be a large deck.
Okay, so you don't need to do anything further to the deck, the existing deck on the house?
Well, we would like to. It's kind of old and not very in great condition, so the deck on the house, we wanted to kind of we'd keep the same foundation, just stabilize it better, put better wood on it instead of the more like the composite deck as opposed to make it more stable, I guess, is what we're trying to do with the existing deck.
So I believe that deck is outside of the buffer zone that we're concerned with, or it's outside of the 50-foot buffer.
Correct.
So I'm not particularly myself concerned about you repairing that particular deck, but would you be moving the staircase somehow?
That's up in the air. It was more of a where to move it. Right now, it's fine where it is. It was just it needs to be more stable. So, if in order to make it more stable, if it came off the side and went to the front a little, everything would be within the 50-foot buffer zone. Out of the 50-foot buffer zone. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the pool is going to be out of the 50-foot buffer as well, which I was glad to see.
Yep, correct.
Yeah. So the regrading, I recall that you did remove a large tree with our permission a year or two ago that was growing out of a clump of rocks.
Yes.
Rocks are still there.
Yes.
Now, do you have any idea, are those rocks go down into the ground some distance, or are they just on the surface, or what's the story with the rocks?
I'm gonna assume they're rather large rocks. I won't know until we try to get them out.
So you're gonna dig up these rocks and you wanna take them away? Is that what's gonna happen?
They would stay on the property.
Maybe on the property.
The property,
edge.
you know, the rocks on the left that were left there along the fence.
Okay, so you'd be adding to the wall that's there?
You're correct.
Okay, so as far as regrading, you know, perhaps it's a little lumpy. I wouldn't have a concern with regrading. I would have a concern if you wanted to bring in soil. If you wanted to smooth things out back there, as long as you replanted something appropriate and stabilized it, I don't know if I would have a concern about that, but I think you did ask to bring in some soil, which I don't think would be something you'd want to see in a buffer zone.
Well, how about some loam so we can add some grass seed and.
It's probably pretty good soil there right now with the wetland.
Some of it's extremely rocky. We've pulled quite a few small rocks out of it, so I wouldn't call it the best soil.
Well, you can take the rocks out. The soil would probably be fine.
I think my only concern is once we take those large rocks out, there might be a hole.
Mm-hmm.
So what could we use to?
Well, you know, that's an unknown whether there's you know, you're not taking the boulders off the property, so anything you bring in still is extra fill. If you were taking the boulders away, then you could replace them with fill.
Well, the boulders will actually be moved into a low area on that side path. It already dips down, so it would kind of just block any drainage from our neighbor's house the way it was prior to them moving their rock wall, kind of like replacing that rock wall.
Okay. Let's just go through the last item here is you want to convert the 50-foot buffer into lawn and gardens. You've already, I must say that your property is very well kept. You know, you're proposing a lot here. You are taking care of your property. You've planted quite a few plants. But what we're discussing here is basically, you know, eliminating any natural wetland area on your property. But that process started quite some time ago when the houses were built. And it's just continued to the point where, you know, you do have a wetland area on the back of your property, and what you're trying to do is pretty much live with the wetland, but eliminate anything that looks like a wetland plant or area. So, you know, that's the struggle I have with it. You're proposing a lot here, and like you say, the neighbors have all reached that condition as well, only they're a little bit farther away from the wetland than your particular property is. We were given copies of the minutes from when the proposal came to us for building your house, and we showed a lot of concern for your particular lot in that it was wetter and closer to the wetland than the others. So I can appreciate that it's pretty hard to see this particular lot as a wetland even now before you do what you're proposing to do. So, you know, it's a problem with small lots, city situation, wetlands are being squeezed, and if we say no to your particular proposal, you know, is it more than a drop in the bucket as far as, you know, saving 10 square feet more of wetland or something? It's a problem. So I would, you know, I looked at the property again just the other day, and it's very neat. It's very well kept. It's very pleasant as far as spending time in the backyard of the house. There's no way it looks like a wetland anymore, even though, you know, water could possibly flood up into there. But as far as wetland vegetation, there's very little of that. So some of your proposals I don't see a problem with as far as moving the rocks. I don't see a problem with that. Putting the pool outside the 50-foot buffer, I don't see a problem with that. The deck rebuild on the house, that's not our concern as far as I can tell. Moving the shed possibly could be a concern, but if it's is it a, what's the shed made out of?
Right now it's vinyl. We were planning on building an actual wood shed because it would be sturdier than the vinyl one.
Mm-hmm.
Those vinyl ones don't hold up very well, especially in this weather.
Yeah. So it's up on blocks. We've had a few of those recently. Where do you draw the line on that? You know, the regrading, I'm definitely not in favor of bringing in soil, but you know, if you want to smooth out the bumpy areas and you're just using the same soil that's there, there's no vegetation to speak of there that would be disturbed by that activity. Were you planning to do any further plantings back there?
Yes. We were gonna on the Drakeage side. We were gonna plant some big roots, like evergreen bushes.
Yeah. You might want to check to make sure that you're planting something that can take a bit of flood water should the water rise back in that corner.
Okay.
The area is full of red maples, and that's because they can take that type of environment.
Correct.
But there could be, you know, there's quite a few wetland shrubs that are quite attractive that can also withstand flooding every now and then.
Okay.
So I'm torn with the proposal, but I don't see really a whole lot of natural wetland to try to save in this particular lot. I'm not saying it's a mess out there. It's very well kept, but in my mind, it's not really a wetland. If they leave areas for flood water to come up on the property and don't try to block that off, then, you know, perhaps one of our goals will be met. Anyone?
Yeah, I like how you kind of went through everything, Louisa. I share a lot of your concerns. I think I'm fine with the shed, especially since it's on blocks. The pool, you know, it's outside the 50-foot buffer zone, like you said. You know, the moving of rocks and the regrading, as long as it's slight regrading without bringing in soil, I'm fine with that. Repairs to the existing deck, again, not an issue. The one thing I'm struggling is with the restoration proposed. It may not look like a wetland, you know, but I'm not one that's certified to say that whether it still functions as a wetland or not, you know. And while what's being proposed for restoration in that area may make it more attractive, I'm a bit uncomfortable given that green light there without having like a wetland biologist say, yeah, that it would help augment or enhance the functionality of the wetland. And this, keep in mind, this is being done under RDA. With the exception of that 50-foot to 100-foot area of restoration, I think everything else would fit under there. But without having a better sense as to whether or not what's proposed in that area, whether it would kind of complement, augment, you know, enhance the functionality of the wetland, I think we'd be remiss of kind of including that in there without getting a better answer on that aspect of the project.
So would you perhaps be looking for a landscape plan for that 50-foot buffer area, and perhaps we could include wetland plants that may have been there originally?
Yeah, someone that's a wetland scientist could go out there. They you know, I mean, you get a good pragmatic wetland scientist, they're going to know that, you know, they're not starting from something that's completely native, but, you know, looking at the area in whole and recognizing what the property owner wants to do and what's the realistic, you know, long-term functionality of that wetland. How do you kind of maintain that with some plantings that are consistent with what a functioning wetland area would be like? I think that's something that would be probably easily doable without a lot of expenses. And then I think if we had that, you know, a wetland biologist saying, you know, you know, in my professional opinion, I think this, you know, would kind of complement and enhance the functionality of the wetland. Then I would say then that all elements I'd be fine with in issuing a -3 determination. But without that, I'm a bit uncomfortable with that last item, which is, you know, doing the work within that 50 to 100 foot area for restoration.
Okay. Any further comments on this particular proposal? Don and Laurie, could we have a little more detail on number 5 there in your narrative, converting the 50-foot buffer zone to lawn and gardens, including tree pruning and landscaping? If you keep in mind perhaps a diagram and maybe a more detailed narrative about that particular item, keeping in mind that there are some very attractive wetland plants, wetland shrubs, and things that there are companies that actually sell, you know, wetland mix, conservation plant mix that includes flowers and other types of grasses that can be quite attractive. And perhaps this might be something you'd actually enjoy, is planning to have maybe a surrounding area, or at least in that corner that's definitely in the wetland, to do some plantings, as Bill suggested, that are going to enhance that area, and in fact, you know, acknowledge that it is a wetland, and it could even be you know, an attraction for wildlife and things like that, birds and that sort of thing. So in my mind, I don't see a whole lot, as Bill said, a whole lot to disagree with as far as digging up the boulders, regrading, as long as it doesn't include fill. And but we'd like a little more information about converting the buffer zone into something besides a wetland. Now, you've already begun on the process, so if there's anything there that you think you want to keep rather than change, you could include that on your plan. Okay. Just say existing.
So if we come up with a more detailed landscape plan for that area that has all the native stuff, is that what you're looking for?
For the buffer zone area, you're proposing to convert it to something, but we don't know what that is. We don't know what you're proposing.
Yeah, didn't quite have a concrete plan yet.
And I think, you know, retaining a wetland scientist, I mean, this isn't something, we're not looking for some grandiose plan. I think you know, 1 to 2 page tech memo from a wetland scientist that, you know, this is what's being proposed. In other words, you could do the bulk of the work and you just want to get their professional opinion that, you know, that this would be consistent with what they would, you know, require for a wetland mitigation type thing. I think that would be fine.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies that do just that, and there's a lot of information on the internet as well about wetlands, so it might be an interesting project to do.
And I got a question. When are you planning to begin these activities? Was it this fall?
For the boulders, we really planned on this fall, and we were going to try to get the shed in before it got too cold.
Right. Because where I'm going with this is, if you wanted to, you know, at least for myself, and you know, I can offer a motion of it. With the challenge is that last thing. Without that level of detail, it's really hard for us to issue a -3 determination, which says, yeah, it's jurisdictional, but it's you know, the impact is de minimis. And so, you know, there's one of two ways we could do is you could strike that restoration element from this RDA right now, and then you could get in a, you know, I could offer a motion to approve the other elements under a -3. And then what you'd have to do is when you have that more detailed plan, you'd have to submit another RDA, or we can continue this if you'd like to kind of do that work now and just have one RDA application.
No, we can strike it now, and then if we get a better plan, we can refile.
In the
Yeah,
spring.
I don't have a preference. It's whatever, gives you more flexibility. And I think, with that, if we were to do that, I'd be comfortable offering a motion to issue a -3 determination so you can proceed ahead with the shed on blocks, the pool outside the 50-foot buffer, the slight regrading and moving in rocks, and then your repairs to the existing deck.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I would appreciate that. I'm okay refiling once we get a better game plan. I'd rather go ahead with the work I know we can do.
Okay. So with that, Louisa, I'll offer a motion to issue a -3 determination at the request of the applicant that would encompass all but item 5, which is the restoration area proposal in the RDA.
Okay, motion made. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, but I have a couple questions. With the rock removal, are we allowing any infill with non-native soils?
I think we don't know how big the rocks are, and
yeah.
Certainly, I think Don and Laurie could call back in if they find there's large as an elephant or Saint Bernard or something like that.
I would like to mimic that sentiment that we're not allowing import of soil unless at this time. And then the minor regrading would kind of fall into that same light. And certainly stays out of the 25-foot no disturb zone for now.
And certainly if you find that you left with a gaping hole there after you move the rocks, then you can include that in your next RDA where you're doing something with the buffer zone to convert it to whatever you want it to be.
We just don't want that to be a safety issue.
So I got a question. If we were to remove those large rocks and we contact, like, say, Jared, to give you guys a heads up that it was like a really, really big rock and we got this huge hole, we wouldn't, it would just something to make it safe. Like, obviously regrading is not going to fill in that large hole.
Okay, so we meet twice a month, and if that's the case and you contact the office, then we can put it on our agenda for the very next meeting, hopefully, and deal with it then. And certainly, you could put a construction fence around it temporarily if it's something of concern.
All right, fair enough.
My recommendation would be if the rock's that big that you just build a planter box over it and plant some vegetables on top of it.
They're awkward, and we thought of that, but we're talking like 3 or 4 very large rocks, and that'd be extremely.
I know it's not ideal, but bringing in non-native soil is not ideal for us.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we've had a motion. It's been seconded, and we're ready for a vote. The motion is to issue a -3 on this particular project, minus the conversion of the lawn to lawn and gardens, which will come back later with a better plan.
Okay.
All those in favor, wave or say aye.
Aye, Weston.
Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you, Don and Laurie, and good luck with your project.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, we have a notice of intent presented by VHB for the City of Lowell and the DEP number 206. 0803. The project location was Broadway Street Bridge, Canal Street Bridge, Canal Street, Francis Street, and this is all in the Hamilton Canal District. We've had a request for a continuance on this, and I believe it's the second meeting in October. Jared, you correct me if I'm wrong. So this will be continued, and we won't hear it tonight. So moving to the last item on our agenda tonight, it's an enforcement order given to Francis Denise, 60 Aegean Lane. And the violation is depositing of fill within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands without permission from conservation. This is actually the backside of the same wetland that was here earlier in the meeting at 113 Fotine Drive. Is there anyone here for 60 Aegean Lane?
I think I'm on it. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. And you are?
I'm Peter Nolan. Francisco is my father-in-law. I live here right now.
Oh, okay.
We're doing like a rent-to-own, basically. I've been here for the past 2.5 years.
Okay, so this particular property, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago, had an enforcement order for the same type of violation in a slightly different location, closer to the street, where sandy fill was dumped down a steep slope in perhaps hopes of leveling out some of the area or enlarging some of the area next to the driveway. Were you living at the house then? Or?
No, but I moved in probably a couple months after that.
Okay, so I'd like to say most of that fill from that enforcement order was removed. This new fill is up next to a garage, also to the rear of the house, and also even more fill dumped over the same steep slope. It's very disheartening to see that the house is in the same property ownership and has the same type of violation. It appeared this time to have been large boulders dumped over the edge, in addition to sand, gravel, and I'm not sure of the composition of everything that's happened. I would say it has to be, I don't know if someone else can estimate. I'm not good at this for how many truckloads look like, but it's got to be many truckloads, I'd say.
Actually, to tell you the truth, so what was there when you had signed off on it previously? Because when my father-in-law was living here, when you guys were involved, I was here. I seen that, and then you signed off on it, and it was actually, you guys signed off on a pretty steep slope. So when I moved in, I have young children, and you signed off, and it was just regular fill. So now the stuff that I put over it is like a more organic, loomy material, because I just want to grow grass on it, just so it prevents stuff from sloping into the wetlands. And I mean, there's no big boulders in there at all, actually.
Okay, I was looking down the slope. At the bottom of the slope, there's probably 5 large boulders with fill in between them. This is halfway down the slope or more.
Oh no, there's large boulders all the way at the bottom. There's a rock wall that goes all along the wetlands that holds all the silt, actually. So it's been there for like 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 years. Okay. So all the rainwater has already washed the silt down, and nothing has passed those boulders. So those boulders have been there, and I'm just trying to put loomy material over it so it's not such a steep slope, and I could just grow grass or whatever on it, so I could actually put a lawnmower down there.
No, you actually can't do any of that. And the boulders and all of that material, whatever it's called.
Yeah, but I didn't put the boulders there. The boulders have been there since I came here. And
Okay, so you're not the property owner. Perhaps you're not liable for this, but certainly the property has been violated, and whoever is the owner or who was responsible, you say you weren't responsible.
No, I'm responsible. I've been here for the past like 2.5, 3 years, but those boulders have been there since I came here. And the last time you guys were involved, those have been there since you signed off on it, because we had to pull a bunch of stuff out of here.
So I got a question, because I'm looking at the same figures Louisa is looking at, and I'm assuming you've seen the figures. And because if you look at it, there, I can see what you're saying near the bottom of the slope there, right near the tree line. There's some existing boulders.
Yeah, those are the boulders I'm talking about. Those have been there.
All right. So that's why I'm trying to get a clarification, because if you look where the fresh loam is that's been kind of dumped in that area, there's also about 3 or 4 large boulders, you know, in that pile. It would look like it was dumped with that versus, you know, I don't see how that soil would have been placed there without those 3 or 4. One of them actually looks like a concrete signpost.
They definitely aren't part of a rock wall. They're much newer than that.
Right. So the bottom line is this, is regardless of what the intent is and all, I mean, anything that's done within the jurisdiction area, you need to file at least an RDA, you know, and that wasn't done. And so I think what we're trying to do now is understand what the intent was, and then from there determine if there's any sort of corrective action that needs to be implemented, because right now there's soil there, you know, and it's not stable. And as you mentioned yourself, I mean, over time, if that's not stabilized, that's going to erode into where those older rocks are along the tree line at the edge of the property.
And I would like to add that there's been dumping of other materials all along there as well. It looks like landscaping materials, shrubs, cut off shrubs, tree limbs, grass clippings. And that's just as much a violation as dumping sand and fill and things like that. This, you know, you can't just say your intention was good by making a better lawn for your kids. That doesn't really make it right. You know, what we need to do is protect the wetland, and right now we've got basically a cliff of loose material that's headed right in there the next few heavy rains. So, you know, I can't separate what was there when you moved in and what wasn't, but since we did have an enforcement order on this property before, and it's under the same ownership now, I think that anything that is a violation is fair game as far as we take control of rectifying the violation.
So to try to summarize a recommendation, we could, you know, start by ratifying, suggest that, you know, the site starts getting cleaned up with some of those other items that you had mentioned, the clippings, the trunks, any, you know, anything else, any of the cement, signpost bases, stuff like that's cleaned out. And meanwhile, an RDA is prepared that discusses the loom and how it'll be stabilized, and perhaps even starting to stabilize it ahead of time.
I like your thinking, Brad.
Yeah, that's whatever I have to do, I'm going to do.
Okay, so there's 2 parts here then. We've got, you know, we've got correcting what you have done, that and then getting a proposal from you of what you want to do. And I think you can get a sense from our discussion that what you want to do can't include filling into the wetland.
I don't want to fill into the wetlands. I just want to put some little bit loomy material so I can put grass seed down and grow grass, and that's it.
So the path to formally document and explain to us what you're looking to do would be an RDA, which is a request for determination of applicability that you can file with the Conservation Office through Jared, who's on the line here.
Okay.
So if you reach out to him and to Fran, who's also in the planning office, they can help you get started on filing an RDA.
I had talked to Fran already earlier this month.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Peter, the thing is, the idea, this got to be done quickly because, I mean, obviously, you know, no one wants to leave the soil in that condition. So my suggestion is to try and get it done and maybe get it for, you know, we can get this added to the agenda for the, you know, first meeting, if not certainly the second meeting in October.
Sounds good.
And then, you know, if there's some things that could be done ahead of time, you know, you can talk with Jared and Fran, and maybe we can kind of, you know, agree to some of these things being done earlier rather than later in advance of the RDA. But in the meantime, I think, you know, what we're going to do is ratify this enforcement order, which will mean it will stay with the property until that RDA is received and approved and then implemented. And then once that's implemented, if you were hearing what we were saying earlier about enforcement orders, you know, once the work has been done and verified, then what we would do is rescind the enforcement order. But to underscore what Louise is saying, you know, no one's looking at intent here, but the bottom line is this is the second violation on the property. You know, third enforcement order, if there's a third one, you know, we could be looking at, you know, stipulated penalties on the property owner.
Yeah, I don't want that. I don't want to have to do with anything of that.
So we're trying to be constructive here. So what I would say is, you know, why don't you talk after the meeting, you know, sometime this week with Jared and Fran, look to find out exactly what you need to do to file a request for determination of applicability. You know, that would kind of stabilize the slope, and then, you know, implement any other things that you were thinking of doing there, so we can discuss them at our next conservation meeting. And then in the meantime, we're going to ratify this order.
Okay. I'm going to call Fran tomorrow. So I think there's one stump down there. I'll pull the stump out. There's one little thing of concrete. I'll pull that out. I'll call Fran. And if she lets me put whatever we have to do, I'll put loom down and grow some stuff. Whatever you want me to do, I'm going to do.
All right.
Okay, you're not going to do anything though until we get the RDA, except for
if it makes it easy on me, yeah, I won't do anything.
Yeah.
Except for pulling out material that you know we're not going to improve, like
yeah, you want me to take the stump and the piece of concrete out? I'll do that and get it ready for whatever else you want me to do.
Some of that landscaping debris is definitely not belong there. That needs to be pulled out.
Yeah, that's near the corner of my shed. Those are my blocks. I'm using those.
No, not that. I'm talking about bushes that have been dumped and limbs and clippings and leaves and things like that.
Well, I think there's a problem too with other people in the neighborhood, but prior before I lived here, because like there's some people that down the street that come and dump their grass clippings and their bushes, everything over the edge of what? Right at the bottom of my driveway. They throw rocks down the hill and everything else.
Okay, it could be that we'll require some signage there.
I mean, I'll put up a sign, but I mean, there's like multiple people that come down here and dump over the edge of the.
Well, we want to correct as much as we can correct out here. You know, the wetland is at risk right now. So
absolutely, whatever. I mean, I'm willing to work with you guys. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do.
Okay, so speak with the office so that you can get that form filed with us as soon as possible of what you want to do. And right now we're going to have a motion to ratify.
All right, so with that, I'll offer a motion to ratify this enforcement order.
Okay, motion made and seconded by?
I'll second it.
Harry, thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously, Jared. So, okay, so we have an enforcement order. You're going to speak with the office, get a paperwork filed for an RDA, and the things that you know don't belong down there you can remove, but we don't want bringing in any more fill or smoothing anything out or
No, absolutely.
around. Just remove the things that are just not going to be allowed, even if you wanted them to under your RDA. So we'll see you hopefully at the next meeting. Weston, did you have?
Nope, sorry, just my internet's being
Okay.
weird.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nolan. And
Thank you. I'll talk to you next meeting.
All right, have a good night.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have other minutes are our minutes from our last meeting on September 9th. Do we have a motion on minutes or do we need some more time?
I feel guilty. I mean, Jared's so prompt getting them done, and they're very detailed. I honestly haven't had a chance to go through them, and there's like 16 pages of them, so I want to be respectful and look through them.
Well, you're our authority, Bill. We can't.
I don't know about that, but
without your okay.
Yeah. Well, if you guys have all looked at them, I'm happy to abstain. I just haven't looked at them.
Okay, so
Can we table them?
yeah,
Let you look at them, Bill. No problem.
Next meeting, no motion on the minutes tonight.
Maybe I'll read them tonight during the Celtics game intermission.
There you go.
Okay. All right, that's the end of our agenda. Do we have any further items that we need to consider? If not, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
Are we good, Jared?
Yep, I have nothing further.
All right, thanks. I'll offer a motion to adjourn.
Seconded by all those in favor. Thank you.
Aye.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Take care.